The One Ring from Free League Publishing, considered by many to be the best role-playing game based on the works of J.R.R. Tolkien. Welcome to our look at the core rulebook.
So the full name of the game is The One Ring Role-Playing in the World of the Lord of the Rings. It's technically the second edition, second iteration of the One Ring role-playing game, and is currently being published and supported by Free League Publishing, who we do have to thank for providing us with a review copy.
The lead writer on The One Ring is Francesco Nepitello, with further game design by Marco Maggi and rules development by Michele Garbaggio. It features additional writing by James Michael Spahn, aka Obi-Spawn Kenobi, and Jason Durrell.
Physically, The One Ring is a hardcover 237-page tome, not counting the index and player resources in the back. The book features a mix of full-color artwork and line drawings on the inside, and text that swaps between red and black. It uses a 2-column layout, which is easy to read, and multiple callouts, tables, and example boxes. It also has a nice classy touch of a red silk bookmark band.
Now, the setting for this Middle-earth RPG is the Third Age in the Eriador region of Middle-earth. 24 years after the Battle of the Five Armies and the events in The Hobbit, and over 50 years before the events in the Lord of the Rings trilogy that most people are familiar with.
While we're talking about the core rulebook for The One Ring here, we do suggest that people who are interested in this game and setting check out the One Ring starter set, which we reviewed back in May of 2022 on episode 171 of our podcast, MIA, Dealing with Absent Players.
The starter box really is the best entry point for this Tolkien-based RPG, featuring simplified rules, pre-generated characters, information on the Shire, and a Hobbit-based adventure to go with it. It also comes with a set of custom dice that most people are going to want if they plan on playing the One Ring.
So speaking of dice, let's get into the mechanics of the One Ring system.
Okay, first, I want to note this is going to be a super high-level overview and not a chapter-by-chapter look at the core rulebook. Yeah. We just want to give you a feel for what the game is about, how it works, and then leave most of the discovery to you.
Now, the One Ring uses a simple dice pool mechanic. Roll 1 feat die plus a number of success dice equal to the appropriate ability rating. Compare the result to the target number for that ability. If you meet or beat the target number, you succeed. In addition, any 6s rolled on success dice provide special successes. These can be spent to activate character abilities, do combat maneuvers, or just indicate extraordinary successes.
And one of the key highlights in this game is that feat die. This thing's very interesting because it's a D12, but it only has the numbers 1 to 10 on it, and then 2 special symbols, one being Gandalf's rune and the other being the Eye of Sauron. In general, rolling the rune is a good thing. It's an automatic success, or it gives some other beneficial special result, whereas rolling Sauron's eye counts as a 0 and triggers some nasty consequences.
As you would expect from any modern RPG, there are quite a few ways to modify this dice system based on character abilities and narrative positioning. Favored rolls let you roll 2 feat dice and keep the highest. Ill-favored rolls let you roll 2 and keep the lowest. Players can spend hope to roll additional success dice. Magic can be used to succeed at any test. Weariness means you can't count the 1s, 2s, or 3s on the success dice. And when you're miserable, any Sauron's eyes rolled will result in an automatic failure.
Now, character creation in the One Ring is based on heroic cultures, and the core game includes Bardings, Dwarves of Durin's Folk, Elves of Lindon, Hobbits of the Shire, Men of Bree, and Rangers of the North. After choosing a culture, you then choose a calling. These include Captain, Champion, Messenger, Scholar, Treasure Hunter, and Warden.
So these 2 choices determine your attributes, your target numbers, your derived stats, standard of living, starting skills, favored skills, combat proficiencies, distinctive features, all the stuff you expect to find in a role-playing game. Now, attributes can be rolled randomly or chosen from an array, and you get lots of choices while making your character, including getting a set of starting experience you can spend to improve your initial numbers.
The characters that you make all form a company, which is, of course, fitting for a Tolkien-inspired game. You do this by selecting a patron from one of the big Middle-earth movers and shakers like Balin, Gandalf, or my favorite, Tom Bombadil, but not the one from the movie. Choosing a safe haven, determining the group's fellowship rating, which can be spent by any company members to regain hope, and determining each character's fellowship focus, which is another character in the company that they are particularly attached to in some way.
Now, the One Ring features a pretty typical XP system based on just playing sessions of the game and not for completing specific in-game tasks. As characters level up, they improve their skills and gain rewards and virtues. There's even a full system for retiring and raising an heir.
Now, gameplay in the One Ring swaps between two phases. There's the adventuring phase, which consists of a number of scenes advancing the story. It's what you expect in most games. This is where all the exploration, encounters, combats, and so on happen. But at the end of each adventuring phase, there's a fellowship phase. This is where the players describe their actions between adventures. They rest, they spend experience, perhaps meet with their mentors, and set up events for their next adventuring phase.
Combat in the One Ring is very abstract as far as positioning, being mostly theater of the mind. But then it's also very tactical when it comes to mechanics, starting with opening volleys and then moving into close quarter rounds where each combatant chooses a stance and enemies pair off in engagements. The dice system remains the same, with players losing endurance and then potentially taking wounds from damage. It's a system designed to paint combat in broad strokes, and it's not a blow-by-blow simulation.
Now, another subsystem you'll find in the One Ring are detailed rules for having a council, something that fits very well in this setting. These are used for any prolonged social encounter and can be just as tactical as a combat sequence. This is where skills like Enhearten, Persuade, Riddle, and Song take center stage.
Now, one of the most well-regarded systems in the One Ring that started with the first edition and is continued in this new version is the journey system. Of course, a huge part of Tolkien's works are about travel, journeying and exploring, and the game represents that with a detailed system where characters take on roles of guide, hunter, lookout, or scout, and through a series of rolls, checks to determine how each journey goes. This has a very hex crawl feel, featuring a new journey map created during each journey, allowing the players to discover Middle-earth along with their characters.
And of course, you can't have a Lord of the Rings game without the influence of the shadow. This is represented in the One Ring through shadow points, which can be accumulated in a number of ways, including through dread, through witnessing tragic events, by encountering the enemy, through harrowing experiences and loss of morale, and through misdeeds like violent threats, cruelty, manipulating others, and murder.
Accumulate enough shadow points and your character could experience bouts of madness and fall deeper down their chosen shadow path. Fall deep enough, and your character is lost to darkness.
Now, along with all these rules, the One Ring Core Book is filled with Middle-earth lore, including a very detailed look at the region of Eriador, highlighting a ton of interesting places for players to explore and a variety of quest and encounter hooks at each. Adversaries and companions, as well as a wealth of treasure, can be found. There's also a very dense chapter about how the game is intended to be run and other lore master tips, with the lore master being the GM in this game.
There's also a sample adventure, The Star of the Mist, which is about an abandoned tower in the easternmost foothills of southern arid Lune, which sometimes glows with an eerie blue light.
You can also find a ton of resources on the Free League website, like PDF character sheets, journey maps, pre-generated characters, and more.
Now, what I love most about the One Ring is the fact it is clearly designed to create Tolkien-esque style stories. There are a number of mechanics here distinctly added to give you that feel of being part of Tolkien's world in the way he wrote it. Things like the council and journey rules, the rules for a company, the way wealth and treasure is completely abstracted except for very key special items, and even the entire adventure phase, broken up by a fellowship phase, gives things a distinct feel. This is very much not just Dungeons and Dragons set in Middle-earth.
Yeah, I haven't read the rule book, but we've talked about it a bunch. And from what you've told me, it definitely has a Middle-earth feel to it, which really is what I'm looking for in a Lord of the Rings RPG.
Now, what some people may be asking is, when you're adventuring, how much of the world is open to discovery versus pre-laid out? There are a lot of hardcore Lord of the Rings fans out there who memorize all the canon. Can players memorize the world and leave nothing to surprise them? Or is there random or lore master driven aspect to adventures?
So one of the things they did that I think was extremely smart is the setting for the game is in a particular time period that is never actually documented in canon anywhere at this point. So that opens it up for you to do your own thing with the world. So while knowing exactly where the prancing pony is and how many steps it'll take you to walk to the last bridge isn't going to help anyone, because the things they know are along the way happened in a different time period, either in the past or the future. More importantly, though, this is a time period narratively. The setting for the game is a period where people don't go far from their homes. There was recently a war less than 25 years ago that isolated villages, towns, people, and landmarks. A war that involved dragons and lots of land being scorched. Now that war is done. So people have kind of buckled down. They're at peace. They settled back into their regular lives, thinking all is safe in the world again. They don't see any need to go venture over the hill. And many people have forgot what's over that hill anyway. Why would you want to go over there? It's not expected that the characters know much more than the land around where they grew up, or the farmstead they manage, or the forest they ward. Every journey in this game is expected to be an exploration and somewhat new and wondrous. The journey system set up to recreate this, so it does include a full random event system. Like, you're going to have an event every 1 to 3 hexes depending on your rolls. And these events, though, are highly narrative. This is not a D&D style random encounter table. This is a single skill check made by a specific character based on the role they're taking in the journey and what type of event you've had. Like, don't think of this as a random combat encounter, but rather interesting things that happen between your adventure sites.
Okay, I love that focus on exploration and wonder.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this really kind of nails the feel of what Tolkien was going for in his stories in a way that most games like Pathfinder and D&D and Deshwashag don't aim for.
So the thing is, you might not want this, right? Like, this is not going to be for everyone. This could be turning off players. There might be people, hitting skip on their podcatcher right now because this isn't what they want from a fantasy game, because this is not a game about beating up the monsters to get their loot, to buy better gear, to beat up bigger monsters, to get bigger loot, to buy better gear. Nor is it a game about exploring your emotions and introspection and interpersonal relationships or getting leverage on each other. Those are all different fantasy tropes that are all valid. But this is a game about epic tales, unlikely heroes, dangerous journeys, forgotten ages, items of wondrous powers, and a steadily growing darkness.
Sounds perfectly Tolkien. Not that I don't love D&D, but not every gameplay needs to boil down to mechanics that favor murder hobos.
And in fact, this one goes in the opposite direction, with that shadow increasing the more you try to murder hobo. And you're going to write your character out there if murder hobo is what you try to play in this game.
Now, another drawback to the One Ring, though, that this is one thing, little niggling thing, is it relies on custom dice. Yes, you could play with standard dice, but it's going to be much easier to remember that 6s are special when they have an elven symbol on them, or that when you're weary, you ignore the 1, 2, or 3 when they're hollow symbols as opposed to bold. And the fact your dice D12 only actually goes from 1 to 10, and the 11 and 12 do special things. Like, it's a mess having to do it. And I don't know, like what you want to do is you probably want the custom dice for this game. They are going to make it easier to play. The first edition of the game did come with the core rulebook. Unfortunately, that is no longer the case, but I still recommend pick up the starter set, because the starter set, you get a bunch of awesome stuff and you get the dice. Like, you get a full detailed book on the Shire, like block by block, and characters from the Shire and an adventure. I say, if you're not interested in that, you can just go buy the dice on their own.
And one thing to note, in early editions of the game, there were some misprinted dice, but that was corrected, and they did send out the corrected dice to people who received the incorrect ones.
Yeah, big props to Free League for handling that extremely well, actually. Now, another thing that's important when trying to decide whether or not to dive into a role-playing game is the game still supported and how much is out there? Now, for some indie gamers, a one-page sheet is good for them to play for years. Other people want lots of setting information and detail and scenarios. Well, for those who care about the latter, the One Ring is still in print. And not only that, new books and supplements are being released surprisingly regularly. Faster than I think I could try to keep up, even if I was running this weekly. These include cool things like there is an entire way to play this role-playing game solo. There is a book called Strider Mode. You pick that up and you can play through any of their published adventures solo, which is just very cool. There are source books for various regions of Middle-earth. There's a book that gives you a life pass system for your characters, which for people who love life pass, that's awesome. There are, of course, multiple new callings and cultures. There's adventures. And there are parts of the journey system that are hinted at in the core rulebook, like perilous sites. Well, there's a book on perilous sites that adds a whole new aspect to the journey system.
Yeah, based on the number of things they've been putting out, I don't think this one's going anywhere soon.
Yeah, now, while there are certainly ongoing, long, involved Tolkien estate-related things that do happen from time to time and continue on, Free League is a notable, significant publisher and is probably not going to do anything to anger the estate as some companies may have in the past.
Yeah, and they're actually at this point, the state is fully on board and they've hired Tolkien experts and like everything in these books is considered canon from what I understand for those who care about that. Though I got to say, now that we've finally reviewed this, I expect the announcement next week that the third edition is coming. Now, the other thing I do want to call out is just how pretty this book is. It's one of those role-playing books. You're not going to want the PDF. You're going to want the physical copy. This is one of the best looking RPGs in my collection, both inside and out. Every One Ring product I own, I have more than just this book to share that same level of quality and amazing artwork. And well, this is true of all Free League's games. Free League makes nice looking stuff. At least of all the Free League stuff I own, I think the One Ring is the best looking of all of them.
Yeah, as someone who hoards books, I appreciate the physical qualities of this book. It's beautiful. It's and this may sound wacky, but it has really nice paper. Like paper quality is a thing in RPGs for me. And I'm like, it's got nice paper. I like it.
No, I mean, I personally prefer the art of Simon Stollenhag more. So my preference would probably be more towards some of the other RPGs. But again, Free League in general has just made some really quality product in all of their RPG lines that we've come across.
Now, of course, the main audience for this game is Tolkien fans, and I think that applies to fans of the books as well as the movies and the TV series. And even the old fans of the Bakshi animated movie and Rings of Power are probably going to dig this. Even fans of Lord of the Ring video games are going to find familiar tropes here. And honestly, if you are one of those people who loves just diving into Lord of the Rings lore, you might want to pick this up without even any interest in playing it, though I suggest trying the game too.
But are there musical segues?
There are chapter headings that have some music, but more importantly, narratively, there is a huge focus on song being important in the game.
I was just being sarcastic. I'm pleasantly shocked.
I don't think there's any new songs presented in here, but this is one of the few games where you can sing your way out of a situation mechanically. Very
cool.
Now, sorry, the hype train's not happening again. It just ran away. It's runaway train. Now, another thing I think this RPG is going to appeal to most fantasy RPG fans, especially those looking for something different from the usual fare. Something different from the game currently celebrating its 50th anniversary. Even just for the curious, this is a great game to give you a look at tackling fantasy from a very different perspective than what you see in a lot of the more popular role-playing games out there.
Yeah, I think, again, as we mentioned before, the fans of games who want to be murder hobos, and to be fair, you know, there's definitely games out there that encourage that and approve of that, and that's fantastic if that's what you want to do. That's just not this game.
Overall, I am just so happy Free League sent me this. I am itching so badly. Like, I don't know if you noticed. I don't know if I was intentionally scratching, but I'm scratching. Like 1,000 mosquito bites badly want to start up some adventures in the One Ring. While the starter set is awesome and provides a ton of games and information, it is missing some key elements that I think most RPG fans are going to want. Like the journey and council rules are not in the starter set, and the entire shadow system is skipped. So Well, I want to say start with the starter set. I think just buy both, like pick up the starter set and this and read both, and then you can kind of mash the two together. When I run the starter set, I fully plan on using the journey rules for the characters exploring Hobbiton.
Good to know. I'm looking forward to that. That's it for our high-level look at the core book for the One Ring role-playing in the world of Lord of the Rings from Free League Publishing. A great system for recreating Tolkien-style tales at your gaming table.
There are a ton of different fantasy RPGs out there, including the venerable Dungeons & Dragons, the similar Pathfinder, more story-driven games like Dungeon World, and my personal favorite, Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. What's your favorite fantasy RPG? Let us know in the comments below, or better yet, start a discussion over on the Tabletop Bellhop Discord at discord.tabletopbellhop.com.
Now that journey's done, what I could really use is some more coffee. And I'm sure I'm not the only one out of the three of us. So help us spend our fellowship phase with a hot brew by heading to ko-fi.com/tabletopbellhop.